Hey Grammar and Comp class, welcome to another lesson on diagramming. So yesterday you guys learned a little bit about what direct objects are and the function that they serve in the sentence. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about how to diagram direct objects. And this will again just help remind us, give a visual way to help us remember the relationship between the direct object and the rest of the sentence. So as we get started, let's just do a little bit of basic review moving into diagramming. It's been a little while since we did some diagramming, so I wanted to just do a quick refresher. The basic subject and verb diagrammed in a sentence is like this, with a horizontal line separated by a vertical line. The subject is on the left side of the vertical line, and the verb is on the right side of the vertical line. So that's the basics of diagramming a subject and verb. Hopefully you remembered that, but if you didn't, there's a little bit more of a refresher for you. Then we also talked about diagramming compound subjects and verbs, and we talked about this kind of rocket-shaped structure when we had a compound subject or a compound verb. So when you've got two subjects and one verb, it looks something like this. Subject 1 on the top line, subject 2 on the bottom line. You've got and on the dotted line in between, connecting those two subjects. And then you've got your vertical line, and then the verb on a horizontal line after that. If you've got two verbs instead of two subjects, you've got the subject on the horizontal line, then the vertical line, then you've got the rocket ship-shaped structure, and you've got verb 1 on top, you've got and on the dotted line in between, and verb 2 on the bottom. So hopefully you guys remember that as well. Then, if you've got two subjects and two verbs, you have the rocket ship-shaped structure on both sides. So subject and subject on one side and verb on the other. Okay, so that's a little bit of review, just reminding you how to diagram subjects and verbs. Those are the core of the sentence. So we're going to move on to talking about diagramming the direct objects and what that adds to our sentence diagrams. So, in order to diagram a direct object, you obviously have to be able to identify the direct object in the sentence. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday in the lesson yesterday. So let's just do a quick refresher on how you identify the direct object, and then we'll look at this example sentence here. So the first thing you want to identify is the simple verb. Now keep in mind the simple verb is like the one-word verb, or maybe the verb and its helping verbs. But you're looking at the simple verb. So in the sentence below, we have Tom ate a delicious pizza, and the simple verb is going to be the action word, which is ate. So that's the action we've got in this sentence, ate. Then to identify the simple subject, we're going to ask who or what before the verb. So who or what ate? Well, we've got an answer to the question who. Tom ate. So that's our subject. And we're looking at the simple subject like the one-word subject unless it's a proper noun that has two words that are a part of one name, right? So we've got our subject and our verb, Tom ate. Now to identify the direct object, you're going to ask who or what after the verb. So I'm going to say Tom ate what? Now we're wanting to identify the simple direct object. So usually one word, again, unless it's a proper noun that is composed of two words, and they have to be the same thing. In this case, Tom ate what? Well, he ate a delicious pizza, but we're looking for the simple direct object, and a and delicious are both adjectives describing the pizza. So really, the simple direct object is pizza. All right, so that's our direct object. So our subject is Tom, our verb is ate, and our direct object is pizza. Now let's look at how we diagram the direct object in a sentence. So if we've just got a subject, a verb, and a direct object in a sentence, then we would diagram it something like this. This would be if we don't have any multiple subjects or multiple verbs or multiple direct objects, right? Just one subject, one verb, and one direct object. So it's all going to be on a horizontal line. The subject, and you're going to have a vertical line. And notice that this vertical line, whether or not you paid attention to this before, this vertical line goes through and comes out through the bottom of the horizontal line. So the subject, and then that vertical line that cuts through the horizontal line, and then the verb. Then the direct object, because it receives the action of the verb, is going to come after the verb. And you're going to have another vertical line, but this one is going to stop at the horizontal line. So you see it does not go below here. It stops. And so that's the difference between the line separating the subject and the verb and the line separating the verb from the direct object. So we've got subject, vertical line, verb, vertical line that only comes to the horizontal line, does not go past it, and then direct object. And the direct object, of course, receives the action of the verb. So let's look at a practical example here. All right, so Ariel found a dingle hopper. All right, so we're going to start by locating the verb. Found is an action word, pretty easy one to identify there. And then who found? Ariel found. And then Ariel found what? Well, she found a dingle hopper. Well, or what she thought was a dingle hopper, right? It's really a fork, but so she found dingle hopper. So that is our direct object. So the diagram would look something like this. All on a horizontal line, Ariel, then the horizontal or the vertical line that cuts through, found, and then the vertical line that stops, dingle hopper. Right? Let's look at one more example like this. Every morning, Rapunzel brushed her hair. Right? Our action verb is obviously brushed. And then who brushed? Rapunzel brushed. And then what did she brush? She brushed her hair. All right, so pretty simple. And the diagram is also going to be pretty simple. Rapunzel, vertical line cutting through, brushed, vertical line that stops, hair. All right, all on a horizontal line. Great. Now, it is possible, like with a subject and a verb, to have a compound direct object, meaning to have two direct objects. So let's look at how you would diagram a compound direct object. So a compound direct object would be diagrammed on the rocket ship shape structure, just like we would diagram any other compound part of speech. It's just going to come after this vertical line that stops, all right? That's where the rocket ship shape structure would be. So you've got subject, vertical line cutting through, verb, vertical line that stops, and then the rocket ship shape structure, and then you have direct object number 1 on top and direct object number 2 on the bottom, and you've got and on the dotted line in the middle. Now remember, direct object number 1 that's on top is whichever one is listed first, and direct object number 2, which is on bottom, is whatever one is listed second. All right, so let's look at a practical example of that. Belle met Lumiere and Cogsworth. All right, so we're going to look for our verb, our action word. We've got met. Then who met? Belle met. And then Belle met whom? Well, she met Lumiere and Cogsworth. So here we have a compound direct object. We've got two different characters who are functioning in the role of the direct object. So let's see how that works. All right, so just like the diagram that I showed you, you've got Belle, and then you've got that vertical line cutting through. You've got the verb met. You've got the vertical line that stops, and then you have the rocket ship shaped structure, and you've got Lumiere on the top because he's listed first, and then and on the dotted line, and Cogsworth on the bottom because he is listed second. All right. Moving on. So this is kind of an interesting situation. And you'll notice that this diagram looks a little interesting, kind of cool. This is kind of a cool looking diagram. This would be if you have two verbs but they both have the same direct object. So both verbs are affecting the same person or thing. So the verb is compound, the direct object is not. So subject, and then you've got the vertical line that cuts through, and then you've got the rocket ship shape structure, and you've got and on the dotted line again, and you've got verb 1 on the top and verb 2 on the bottom. But then you'll notice that the rocket ship shaped structure comes back together after the verb because we're going down to one direct object. So we have to connect it again. We can't just leave it open. So here it comes together again. And then we've got that vertical line that stops and then the direct object on a horizontal line after that. Okay, so a little bit of a unique diagram, but this would be if you've got two verbs but only one direct object. Let's look at an example of that. Aladdin loved and respected Jasmine. All right, so you've got two different verbs here. We've got loved, which is an action word, and respected, which is also an action word. All right, and then who loved and respected? Well, Aladdin loved and respected, so that's going to be our subject. Aladdin loved and respected whom? Aladdin loved and respected Jasmine. So Jasmine is our direct object. All right, so let's see what that looks like in a diagram. All right, so very similar to what I showed you a few moments ago. We've got Aladdin on the horizontal line, then the vertical line that cuts through, and then we've got the rocket ship shaped structure going out. We've got and on the center line, the dotted line in the center. We've got verb 1, loved, verb 2, respected, and then it comes back together to go down to the one direct object. We've got the vertical line that stops, and then we've got the direct object, Jasmine. All right, one more way to diagram direct objects. So let's say you had two different verbs, and each verb had its own direct object. So the subject did something to one thing or person, and then it did something else to another thing or person. So in this case, it splits at the verb, but it never comes back together because both verbs are not acting on both direct objects. They're acting on different direct objects. So in this case, you've got subject on the horizontal line, you've got that vertical line that cuts through, then you have the rocket ship shaped structure and it splits, and you've got and on the dotted line in the middle, and you've got verb 1 up here, and then verb 1 applies to a particular direct object. So you're going to have direct object 1 up here. And then you've got verb 2 down here, and it has a different direct object, so you're going to have direct object number 2. Now notice you've still got these vertical lines that stop. They don't cut through. But you will notice that verb 1 acts on the first direct object and verb 2 acts on the second direct object. Let's see that in a sentence. Aurora found the spinning wheel and touched the spindle. All right, so we are first going to identify our first verb here, found. Well, who found? Aurora found. So Aurora is the subject and found is a verb. Aurora found what? Aurora found the spinning wheel. All right, now we're going to look at the simple direct objects. So we're just going to go for the word wheel because the and spinning are both describing the wheel, what kind of wheel. However, we notice we've got another action word in this sentence, touched. So we look at that and then we say, who touched? Well, Aurora also touched. She found and she touched. Aurora touched what? Did she touch the spinning wheel? No. She touched the spindle. So the spindle is our other direct object. So it's important to note that she did not find the spinning wheel and the spindle, and she did not touch the spinning wheel and the spindle. She found the spinning wheel and touched the spindle. They're separate actions. So let's see how that works out. All right. like we saw a few minutes ago. So we've got Aurora as our subject starting us out. We've got that vertical line that cuts through, and then we've got the rocket ship structure splitting. We've got found on top with the vertical line that stops for wheel, and then we've got and in the middle. We've got touched on the bottom with the vertical line that stops, and then spindle. All right, guys, so hopefully you have a good grasp, or at least a beginning of a good grasp on how to diagram direct objects. Since you know how to diagram subjects and verbs already, hopefully this will be pretty simple. But if you have questions or you need to refresh, feel free to go back and watch this video again and keep replaying it until you feel like you've kind of figured it out. And then when you feel like you've figured it out, there's going to be some sentences below this video to diagram. Like always, you can submit those with the Let's Diagram software, or you could do them on paper and take a picture or scan them and send them to me. All right, guys, I hope you have a great day, and feel free to contact me if you've got any questions about diagramming direct objects. Bye.